Aloha, I'm Johnson Reira.
Malo Lele, I'm Alice Lolohea.
And together we usually host the Pacific, but today we've got something special for you all.
Recently, we travelled to Hawaii to film a special documentary on the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture, the biggest celebration of Pacific culture and identity on the planet.
We met with artists, carvers, dancers, weavers, creatives and musicians who preserve Pacific culture through their art.
We also met Raki Ap and Koteka Wenda, who advocate for their homeland, West Papua, a province of Indonesia. For decades, West Papua has been plagued by violence and bloodshed. Here's our extended talanoa or interview with them.
Just in case we get in trouble from our parents and they're like, wait, quickly start eating. Our Heavenly Father, I just thank you for friends, thank you for family. We think of those that are not with us and we pray that you bless the hands that have prepared this food. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
So brother, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, about your family, where you're from and how you came to do the work that you do.
My father is Arnold Ap and he was a famous anthropologist and musician. He visited all the tribes and learned all the different traditions. And as a musician, he wrote songs about it. And that's why he became very famous and beloved by the West Papuan people. But of course, under the new colonized Indonesia, his music inspired the entire nation and he was assassinated 4 months before I was born. At that time, I was still in my mom's belly. We fled to the neighboring Papua New Guinea, where I was born in 1984. And a year later, we arrived in the Netherlands, the former colonizer of West Papua, where I grew up as a Dutch citizen. And at an age of 16, 17, my mom said, son, come sit on the table, and I want to tell you the true story about why we are in the Netherlands and why you don't have a father anymore. And I will never forget that moment.
The island of New Guinea is divided between the Indonesian-controlled western half and the independent nation of Papua New Guinea. But the border between them is rooted in colonialism. Control of what was then known as West Irian was passed from the Netherlands to Indonesia in a deal brokered by the UN in the 1960s and solidified by a controversial referendum that was neither fair nor free.
For the Indonesians, the result is already a foregone conclusion. West Irian will remain with Indonesia.
A civil war marked by bloodshed and repression have marred the region ever since. The Indonesian military is accused of widespread human rights abuses and hundreds of thousands of people are thought to have died in the conflict and many more have been displaced.
I heard that my father was assassinated and I saw the picture that he was laying in a coffin. And that moment changed my life to the person I become today. Because my father's story is just one of the 100,000 of stories of West Papuans who've lost a family member. Since that moment, I did my best to serve my people in the best way I can. And I joined the army because I thought that was the best way to contribute to peace and justice. However, understanding how the political dynamics works, it transformed me to the activist I become today. So I still work as civil servant. But besides that, I also became the international spokesperson for the Free West Papua campaign. And what we did is educating people, especially in the Netherlands, about what should be a shared history, what has been left out of the history books. We become the history teachers, we become the journalists, and we become the ones who are educating the people in the Netherlands and now also in this region.
I guess we've got to make it clear that this accent that we're hearing is from the Netherlands.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, and then on this side we hear a British accent. Yeah.
My story begins in Blackwara refugee camp in Papua New Guinea on the border. And I spent my early months in the refugee camp alongside other West Papuan mothers and family. And it's a very difficult story to tell, but it's my story, it's the reality. many West Papuans who were living in the refugee camp, didn't make it past those early years. And me sitting, opposite you in Hawaii, speaking about my people's struggles, it's a miracle. So I thank God for that, first and foremost. But yeah, my accent is British. This is not by choice. My father is Benny Wenda, West Papuan independence leader. And he, in the early 2000s, was put in prison, became a political prisoner, just for simply raising our flag and fighting for freedom and justice. And he managed to escape, and my mother and I followed suit.
When I was in prison, handcuffed, no food, dark room.
The reality is, my family and I, we are living in exile. And we use that freedom to spread our people's message.
Does it then feel a little bit surreal to be here in Honolulu, Hawaii for FestPac?
Yeah, I think when we were at the opening ceremony, watching our Papua New Guinean Wantoks go on the stage, I remember just thinking, like, that could be my uncle, that's my auntie. Like, they are Papuan, we are Papuan. And I think for too long, like, the island of New Guinea, that border, that colonial border has played games, a mind game on, our Wantoks on the eastern half. And I really believe that the Pacifica family should be doing more for their Wantoks. But yeah, I mean, Uncle, what's your experience been as an older?
Yeah, absolutely. It underlines the double feeling that both of us had during the opening ceremony. That on one hand, we are very happy to see how our Pacific family is celebrating independence and the cultures, and we are, here enjoying that moment. But at the same time, the reality in West Papua is that our cultures and our artists are under oppression, huge oppression. It's declining, it's disappearing due to colonialism, which is very much alive. So, that gives us constantly, wherever we are, that we are enjoying to be here, feeling how it is to kind of live in freedom, but at the same time that we have the immense privilege to experience that, while the Papuans that we left behind, almost 2 million indigenous West Papuans, cannot express themselves in a way that we see here at this festival. So this is the feeling that we carry with us, and we turn it into a responsibility that we have to share the story that the West Papuans want us to share with the Pacific family.
Can I dig a little bit deeper into that? Because
yes.
FestPac, I guess, is a celebration of Pacific culture.
Yes.
It's a celebration of connection. West Papua don't have an official delegation here.
Yes.
Is it a little bit hard to celebrate, I guess?
You are absolutely putting your finger on the wound, to say so, because that's why we're here for. We are clearly, West Papua is clearly part of New Guinea. It's one big island. We are clearly part of Melanesia, and therefore we are clearly part of the Pacific Islands. And therefore we deserve a place in the delegation. There's no doubt about it. Geographically, ethnically, culturally, we are part of the Pacific family. So witnessing that we are being excluded is heartbreaking. And the only way to allow the Pacific family to have a tiny sense of that injustice is us being there on the stage, waving the West Papua morning flag, to remind them that we celebrate with you, but please do not forget that a family member has been left out. So yes, that's why we're here for, to highlight the exclusion of a family member.
Absolutely, and there has been a couple of delegates who have spoken out in support of West Papua, of Kanaki, Vanuatu. Do you think much change could happen at a place or event like FestPac?
100%. I think we too often underestimate non-political organizations. For example, music, for example, sports, obviously culture, and more. I think when you, for example, look at South Africa and apartheid, like sports played a huge role in global awareness. And when you look at, you know, black struggles in America, music played a huge role in global awareness. And I believe that cultural festivals like Festpak and the Melanesian Arts Festival and more, and, you know, Independence Days in general.
I think they definitely underestimate we were speaking about this before, they underestimate the role of performance, the role of culture in making a statement. You know, it's not just there for tourism, entertainment. You know, we can really say something with our culture. Yeah.
And you're a musician yourself.
Yeah.
So please tell us more about that and how you use that as part of your activism and your message.
Well, it's funny, you know, you recognise that. I recognise every West Papuan has a song in them. Every West Papuan.
Even if it's not in tune?
If it's not in tune, hey, that's a different story. All us West Papuans, and my uncle can relate, we all grew up with, you know, 1 or 2 freedom songs being sung to us. Freedom songs for us, West Papuan songs, that's our lullabies. That's our way of passing on knowledge of our history, of our culture. And my mother, I have to give a lot of credit to my mother. She's a phenomenal songwriter and musician. And she went out her way, when we first arrived in the UK, to write down as many freedom songs in our, not in English, but in our traditional language. And also to, you know, that whole language revitalization. So yes, I can play ukulele, guitar, and sing. But I don't do these things, you know, to glorify myself and to flex. Like, I mean, that's a plus. That's a plus. So people think it's cool, and that's great. But the real reason is, you know, to continue that legacy of spreading the message, and yeah, maybe future Festpaks, like, we'll have West Papuans singing our freedom songs.
No, maybe we will.
We will, yeah. I like that definite answer, yeah. But my uncle can tell you about his, you know, family legacy.
I think, yeah, my father, to jump into that, thank you, Koteka, have shown the power of music and culture, because that's the reason that he became so famous and powerful in the eyes of a colonial power. So learning from that, I've seen that music and art is equal as politics. Because what my father have learned me through his music, not only me, but many West Papuans, is that when we lose our culture, our identity, who are we on this planet? So our culture and identity makes us West Papuan. And therefore, you know, preserving our culture and art here in the region, I hope the region will understand that it's more than just a show. It's about who we are. And if we track back the journey that our ancestors made, we should protect it. And when injustice is happening, attacking cultures, other perspectives, we should stand in solidarity. So I'm looking forward to learn from other Pacific Island nations and the cultures, and that we can, you know, build this bridge among our nations and peoples.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said culture is also under threat. You know, when we look at the plight of West Papua, it's about more than just independence. What else is at stake?
What is at stake is basically everything if you look at the numbers. We have become a minority in our own country because of a consistent transmigration policy of the colonial power. We have seen an immense deforestation happening because of palm oil plantations, because of fossil fuel companies, because of the world's largest gold mine. Doing nothing means that we're heading towards extinction as people.
When you can look at the national level, and then you can look at the individual, you know, the average West Papuan. I think when you live on your own land and you are becoming the minority, and your rights are being taken away from you, land rights, your culture is being appropriated by settlers, or your you know, the beauty standards don't match your, you know, who you are. I think what's at stake is, you know, a whole generation of West Papuans not being proud to be Melanesian or Pacific Islander. And I think what's really evil about colonialism, it can, you know, it can really destroy your self-esteem, your sense of worth and value. And I'm blessed to have parents who really, you know, celebrated our Melanesian identity, and you know, they took us to every single sort of Independence Day gathering or festival in the UK, Island Festival, to try and instill that confidence. But you know, my heart breaks for the next generation of West Papuans. You know, what will they see when they look on the mainstream media, or when they, you know, watch music videos, or when they, you know, so that's another thing that's at stake. You know, our sense of value and our sense of identity.
You know, this we were talking about this off camera. This has been a long fight, you know, for the indigenous people of West Papua, and then of course you've got, you know, Kanaki as well. Why do you think the fight for independence for West Papua doesn't get as much attention as, say, a place like Ukraine?
Like Ukraine? That's a very, very good question. I think it's all about representation within the institutions in the global north, but also in the Pacific countries. As we've seen the immense global coverage about the rightful global coverage about the war in Ukraine, which we understand, and how Europe and the United States and Australia are firmly standing behind, you know, the coverage. Why is the world not standing behind West Papua, and especially the Pacific family? This is our own very much genocide in the region. So I think it's a matter of responsibility, especially of the Pacific leaders and institutions, to take the responsibility, as we see that Europe is doing the same thing for Ukraine. So that's where we jump in, to make sure that they understand their own responsibility. Yeah, perhaps you can add something on.
Yeah, that's the question of why doesn't the world know about West Papua? You know, besides foreign media and journalists being banned from reporting, I also think that I would argue that people don't even know what West Papuan looks like. You know, I think when you look at the map, too often when, you know, it's focused on the Pacific, it will cut off the border from Papua New Guinea onwards, as if suddenly past those mountains and those rivers, there's a completely different ethnicity or different tribe or different like people group. But no, we are New Guinea Islanders, you know? So that's been a struggle, just people realizing that we are Melanesian. But then, you know, we are what I would describe a 21st century black liberation struggle. And so, I mean, you could argue that in the sort of international community, in the 60s, you know, you saw a wave of decolonization in Africa. And yeah, West Papua it's not even, you know, made its way into people's dinner tables or in the global lexicon. Like, even in academia, it's not as frequently mentioned. I mean, I went to university in the UK, I studied international relations. Not once was West Papua, let alone the Pacific, mentioned in my class. So, yeah, it's not public knowledge, and also people don't have the representation that we feel we deserve because of our, you know, maybe our blackness, or maybe because we are not, you know, historically recognized as Melanesians.
I would love to touch something that I was forget to mention about the Global North coverage. If you, for example, use Ukraine or West Papua, what West Papua is showing is a double standard in the institutions. Why Australia's genocide on doorstep is not being covered. So we can't blame the Pacific Islanders if the institutions don't take the responsibility for more than 60 years. And this is something that we want to highlight, and especially our family in the Pacific, the universities, the academia, and the media. So that's why we are really happy, at least make a start here covering West Papua, because I think it should be, you know, more mainstream in the region, so the people can have a touch and feel empathy like they have for the people in Ukraine, because it's daily in the newspapers, in the talk shows, and I think that's what we need here.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because quite often we would share with each other that, and it's come across as feedback from people that, you know, our cultural dance, our entertainment gets celebrated a lot, and Sure, I understand
Yeah.
that, but you know, discussions like this, even within our own people and our own
Yeah.
communities,
Mhm.
very rarely occur. Maybe because of social media,
Mhm.
it's improved. But I myself am learning here today, and I'm sure Alice is as well. I'm curious to know is how do you preserve West Papuan culture and customs, being so far away from home?
Wow.
I
Very good.
find social media is the best, for me, best way that I can preserve culture and make it accessible.
But it's this symbol that gives my people, the people of West Papua, hope.
I'm fortunate to, again, be a musician, but also come from a family that, you know, collects music, who, you know, we have access to people and history books. And so what I like to do as a young person is, I have an Instagram account and I'm always posting either videos of me. Okay, oops, sorry. No, my Instagram handle is Kalali Wenda, and I'm always posting videos of either me dancing, me singing, with my mum or by myself. I share documentaries, books, resources, just going over time to make sure that you know, the online community have accessible information, because I mean, not even in the, you know, the international community, even in West Papua, our websites, our activists and Free West Papua websites are all banned. So, you know, it's people have to organise through WhatsApp groups, through Facebook. So social media is one of our biggest tools. And, you know, there's groups, for example, that I'm part of, where I'm learning my language, or I'm learning my cultural philosophy, and even just asking questions. Like, I have, both my parents are Papuan, so every now and then, you know, I'll just sit them at the table and just literally just harass might be a strong word, but like, just, you know, interrogate them. Like, I'm hungry for culture. And that's the sentiment here in Hawaii. Like, I am so hungry for culture. And no one is as, I feel like, when you come from a Pacifica nation that is being suppressed in such a way, like, the hunger that I have and my uncle have is unmatched. Like, the way my eyes were opening during the opening ceremony, and every time I walk around, you know, the city, I'm just like taking it all in. But for me, for example, one thing I like to do is I'll just sit down in my room and just literally learn as many West Papuan songs, even if they're from the 70s or the 80s or 90s. I'll try and learn all of them so that I can teach my siblings. And this is something I want to encourage, you know, all those big sisters and brothers out there. Never underestimate your role in protecting, preserving, and inspiring your siblings is huge. It's huge. So yeah, I use social media and I use my parents' knowledge to protect and preserve.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful question. And if I make me remember when I was a kid in the Netherlands, where for about 2,000 West Papuans live, I was like the second generation that still had the opportunity to learn from the first generation who arrived in the Netherlands, and they are our elders. And they're the ones who basically, when we organize a community gathering, that they learned, the children, West Papuan songs. And this is how my older brothers were able to learn songs, to play guitar. Even if I can't, you know, read music notes, we just look at each other and we play the song. This is how we do. And this is how I've learned to play the ukulele, how I play the guitar and learn the songs. But the thing is that while your community is struggling to integrate in a society where you not have the tribal or the village community, these things will decline. And that's what you see in the Netherlands as well, that the elder generation will pass away. And we have to choose in working, campaigning politically, and of course you wanted to keep your culture alive, but it's like you can't do that all at the same time. And this is the thing that I think many indigenous peoples who are living abroad from their original country face the same reality. So what we try to do is, when we are together, music is always part of whatever celebration, whether it's a wedding, whether it is a birthday, the ukulele, music and the tifa will be there. And
even funerals?
Even funerals. We will play Mu Papuan songs, freedom songs, to remind us that music is part of our identity and our culture.
Can I just say, for those of us that have no idea, can we find these online? And what would we search if we wanted to find these music?
Let's start with yours. Yeah.
So YouTube, look up Mambisak. Mambisak is the band of my uncle's father. And they've got like old cassette tapes, like old. And what the beautiful thing about the Mambisak band is they literally went around each of the islands and villages collecting, documenting languages and writing songs. So Mambisak is a good place to start. And then a little plug, my family band, the Lani Singers. That's the band that my mum wrote all those freedom songs for. So the Lani Singers also, and the Black Brothers. That's another. People don't know this, but West Papua had their own, progressive rock, Black Power moment in the 70s. So the Black Brothers are also, you can listen to them on Spotify and YouTube or whatever. When you, for example, look at South Africa and the apartheid, like sports played a huge role in global awareness. And when you look at, black struggles in America, music played a huge role in global awareness. And I believe that cultural festivals like Festpak and the Melanesian Arts Festival, there should always be the West Papuan flag flown at all of these events. And West Papua is what I would describe, it's the splinter in the skin. It should be the splinter in the skin of every Pacific Islander. It's that itch. You have to always remember that it will never go away unless you address it and take it out. And as a young person, I have to remain hopeful that there will be change. And I just think the arts and culture, they will play a huge role in our eventual, freedom.
For highlights on the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture, including traditional voyaging, carving, fashion and more, you can watch our documentary Canvas of Oceans in full on ABC iView or ABC Australia's YouTube channel.
Thank you for joining us. Mahalo.